Welcome to an open page with LongTemple. Tonight's reading opens with the prologue from Caramel and Steel, a platinum chocolate romance. For 33 years, Marlie Bennett lived in the background of her own life. Her husband's needs, her children's wants, her home, polished, predictable, and hollow. Everything she touched carried the weight of someone else's comfort. There was no explosion, no betrayal, no sudden heartbreak. Just erosion, the kind that eats at a woman's edges until she starts to forget her own outline. Laughter faded into politeness, desire into duty, love into logistics. Her mornings had become choreography, coffee brewing before dawn, shirts pressed, lunches packed, bills paid, patience practiced. She was the pulse that kept everyone else alive, but no one heard her heartbeat. 2 daughters of her own, 4 stepchildren she had guided with care, yet none saw her beyond what she could give. "Mom, I need this." "Ma, can you send that?" Requests came, gratitude rarely followed. It was a kind of loneliness that didn't announce itself. It lingered quietly, dressed as responsibility. Then one ordinary morning, sunlight spilled across the kitchen counter, landing on the empty chair where her husband had once sat. Always scrolling, always somewhere else. She stood there, coffee cooling in her hand, her reflection trembling in the window pane. He doesn't see me. He hasn't in years. The thought was calm, not cruel, and it changed everything. She didn't know who she was outside of marriage, outside of being mother, stepmother, problem solver, peacekeeper. But she knew one truth with startling clarity: being alone would be better than being invisible. When she asked for the divorce, he blinked in disbelief, as if she'd spoken another language. There were no arguments, no pleas, just a slow unraveling that lasted 3 long years. A paper war waged in silence. By the time the dissolution came through, Marlie had already packed her spirit and her peace. She left the Williamsburg brownstone, that shrine of appearances, and crossed the river to Orange, New Jersey, carrying boxes and a freedom she hadn't yet learned how to wear. The quiet there was new, not hollow, open. She began with small rebellions, cooking meals she wanted without apology. Buying tulips because she liked their softness, not because they matched the decor. Letting jazz, soul, and old-school R&B shake the walls until rhythm replaced the echo of obligation. In that silence, she began to hear her own voice again. Some nights she'd lie awake whispering, "You made it out." Other nights, tears would fall, not from grief, but release. Healing didn't arrive as happiness. It came as honesty, and in that honesty, she found the courage to begin again, unhurried, unfinished, but finally seen. Thank you for spending this moment with the story. We'll continue together on the next open page. If this reading resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment, share what stayed with you, or simply let me know you were here. We'll continue together on the next open page with Chapter 1, Taking Action, on Thursday, March 5th, 2026, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hello, and we are back to an open page with LongTemple. We are delving into Episode 2, Chapter 1, of Caramel and Steel. So let's begin. Chapter 1, Taking Action. The mirror didn't lie. It simply reflected what she'd fought to remember. Marlie stood before her full-length mirror, the faint hum of the ceiling fan stirring warm air scented with sandalwood and faint traces of jasmine. Light from the nearby lamp rippled across her caramel-toned skin, tracing the slope of her shoulders and the quiet strength in her arms. Strength sculpted from the daily choosing of herself. The woman staring back wasn't a survivor of time, she was the author of it. Her ash-brown wig framed her cheekbones like brushstrokes on a canvas, soft waves she'd spent 20 minutes perfecting to look undone. Crimson lipstick burned bright against her mouth, not decoration, but declaration. The fitted red dress hugged her curves with unapologetic confidence, a silver belt cinching her waist like punctuation to her power. When she shifted her stance, her pumps clicked on the hardwood floor, a metronome to her rebirth. She adjusted her sterling choker, gold hoops catching the light as she smiled. Not bad for 53, she thought, striking a playful pose before lifting her phone. The camera winked in rhythm, click, click, her reflection glowing with a confidence she hadn't seen in years. I could give these 20-somethings a run for their money. That quiet thrill of approval pulsed through her veins as she turned toward the ring light already set up in her living room, her new creative altar. Her apartment reflected her dual nature, part structure, part soul. On one side, a neat stack of manila folders from her job as an administrative education officer for the Department of Education, every report labeled and precise. On the other, a vase of fresh tulips, a flickering candle, and an abstract painting she'd made during a restless weekend. Wild color, no symmetry, no rules. A Chaka Khan vinyl spun on her vintage turntable, the air vibrating with the lush pulse of bass and brass. The music wrapped around her, a living heartbeat. By day, Marlie Bennett was the calm in chaos, the voice of order inside the city's most unpredictable classrooms. She wrote the discipline codes, drafted the charges, balanced compassion with consequence. Her words kept the system standing. Her silence kept her sane. But tonight, she wasn't writing reports or fixing anyone else's mistakes. Tonight, she was taking her own advice, taking action. She stepped into the glow of the ring light, her body swaying to the bass line. The shutter clicked in rhythm, denim and lace, silk and smiles, each pose catching not just beauty, but revival. Every flash said what words could not. I'm still here, still vibrant, still woman. By the end, her apartment looked like a scene after the final take, clothes draped across chairs, a half-empty wine glass, laughter still lingering in the air. She poured herself another sip of Merlot and sank into her chair, scrolling through the photos. Confidence stared back. So did hope. Her pulse fluttered, the delicious tremor of what if. Her pulse fluttered, the delicious tremor of what if. She opened the dating app she'd downloaded weeks ago. The soft blue glow painted her face in stage light. After a long pause, she began to type. I'm Marlie, a 53-year-old administrative education officer for the Department of Education, passionate about fashion, crafts, and rediscovery. Recently divorced, I'm learning what it means to live life on my own terms. Bonus points if you love karaoke or have a killer sense of style. She reread the words and smiled, steady, proud, unafraid. Then she selected 6 photos, laughter, color, confidence, joy. Each one whispered a chapter of the woman she was becoming. Her thumb hovered over Go Live. The anticipation hummed through her fingertips, but old habits still tugged. Dinner first, she said aloud, saving the profile as a draft. In the kitchen, the rhythm continued, the percussion of knife against cutting board, garlic sizzling in olive oil, Chaka still crooning low. The scent of warmth and spice wrapped around her like a promise. For years, she'd watched others begin again. Now it was her turn. For the first time in years, the horizon shimmered, endless, forgiving. Morning came softly. Sunlight spilled through her blinds, striping her sheets in gold. Marlie stretched, her body still humming from the courage of last night. Coffee brewed in the kitchen, dark, rich, alive. She stood at the counter, mug in hand, staring at her phone. Emails, news alerts, schedules, all irrelevant. With a deep breath, she opened the dating app, reread her words, and pressed Go Live. The world didn't shift, not visibly, but inside her something had finally moved. She began to scroll, left, 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 through the parade of blurry selfies and overly confident smiles. Then one stopped her cold. A man with a gleaming bald head and a silver-gray beard. His smile, steady and sure, looked like peace disguised as charm. His eyes, bright yet measured, seemed to see things others missed. "Is he real?" she whispered, pulse quickening. She tapped like. A second later, the screen flashed. You and trunk matched. Then came the first message. "Greetings, Marlie. Your smile is delightful, your teeth are lovely, and your feet are stunning." She blinked, half laughing. Feet? Scrolling through her photos, she found the boat shot, her crimson-painted toes in strappy sandals, sunlight kissing the water. "Ah," she thought, smiling to herself, typing back. "Thank you, trunk. That's quite an observation. Most people don't notice feet, but I appreciate the compliment." Moments later, her phone buzzed again, a call request. His voice, when she answered, was deep and smooth, rich as aged bourbon. They talked easily, laughter folding between sentences. Their rhythm was instant, familiar, as if they'd known the melody all along. When he accepted her invitation for ice cream, she grinned to herself, brushing a curl from her face. Simple, sweet, and low pressure, she thought. And for the first time in years, Marlie looked forward to being seen. "Thank you for spending this moment with the story. We'll continue together on the next open page. If this reading resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment, share what stayed with you, or simply let me know you were here. We'll continue together on the next open page with Chapter 2, First Impressions, on Sunday, March 8th, 2026 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome back to an open page with LongTemple. If you joined me for the first 2 episodes, you've already experienced the epilogue and Chapter 1 of Caramel and Steel, a platinum chocolate romance. Thank you for continuing this journey with me. Caramel and Steel introduces readers to Marlie and the unforgettable women of the Ebony M elite. 4 women whose friendship, humor, and determination shape the heart of this story. Tonight, we continue the journey with Chapter 2. Settle in, turn the page with me, and enjoy the next chapter of Caramel and Steel. Chapter 2. Teeth, Texts, and Tiny Victories. The night before had ended with a smile, the first genuine one Marlie Bennett had worn for herself in years. By morning, that same smile had turned into nervous energy that hummed through her apartment like quiet electricity. Alive, insistent, impossible to ignore. Sunlight spilled across her bed, gilding the soft mound of discarded clothes, blouses, skirts, and heels that had been perfect until they weren't. Marlie stood before the mirror again, half amused, half undone, another version of herself forming with every outfit change. Fabric whispered as she slipped into a sleek white blouse, the satin cool against her skin. The blush-colored midi skirt followed, graceful, soft, unassuming yet elegant, the kind of piece that moved when she moved. Her ash-brown locks cascaded in loose waves around her face, each curl coaxed patiently into place. The faint scent of her vanilla and musk perfume drifted through the air, mingling with Anita Baker's voice, low, honeyed, and promising from the speakers across the room. "This is it," she told her reflection, her berry-colored lips curving into a smile that carried both resolve and wonder. Her phone buzzed. One short vibration. He's here. For a heartbeat she froze, breath caught, pulse quickening, the way a woman pauses at the edge of something she knows will change her. Then she exhaled, clutching her purse. Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor, in rhythm with her heartbeat as she crossed the apartment, locking the door behind her with deliberate calm. By the time she slid behind the wheel of her car, calm had dissolved into exhilaration. Her heart thrummed beneath her blouse, steady as percussion beneath melody. The city rolled past her window, storefronts glowing, streetlights flickering like winks of permission. The drive blurred into motion and thought, 100 tiny what-ifs tumbling through her mind. What if he doesn't look like his photos? What if the spark fizzles before dessert? She shook her head and smiled to herself. Stop it, Marlie. The man has depth. He listens. He makes you laugh. And there was something else she had noticed the night before. The way he spoke about faith, not loudly, not performatively, but like a man who carried it quietly inside his bones. The way his sentences slowed when he mentioned gratitude. The way he listened fully before answering, as if patience had become a discipline in his life. She had noticed his clothes in the photos, too. Nothing flashy. Pressed shirts, clean lines, intentional. The kind of dressing that said a man respected himself and the moment he was stepping into. It stirred something inside her she hadn't expected. A sense of steadiness, of groundedness, not excitement, not performance, peace. She adjusted the rearview mirror and caught her own grin. And he has good teeth, she added with a soft laugh, watching the golden streetlights streak across her windshield. Still, a small voice whispered beneath her calm, what if this is another version of invisible? What if he looks but doesn't see? She silenced it with a breath. Tonight wasn't about fear, it was about freedom. The night air slipped through her cracked window, carrying a trace of summer rain and city exhaust. Traffic pulsed around her, the city alive with stories she had never stopped long enough to hear. She replayed his voice from the night before, calm, deep, measured, a rhythm she could almost sway to. Freedom, she reminded herself, easing through the next green light. When she pulled into the ice cream shop's parking lot, the glow of anticipation faltered. The neon open sign hung dark. The shop was closed. Her heart dipped, disappointment settling across her shoulders like cool night air. She parked and stared at the dark window. Maybe this is a sign, she thought. Maybe the universe is laughing again. The empty lot shimmered beneath the streetlight. Too quiet, too still. The faint scent of sugar and asphalt lingered in the air, ghosts of sweetness that might have been. She tapped the steering wheel. So much for my genius plan. Earlier that evening, on the other side of town, Trunk had stood inside the quiet order of his walk-in closet, rows of pressed shirts, folded slacks, polished shoes, a reflection of the life he had built through discipline and repetition. For 35 years, Dr. Trunk had worked as a clinical psychologist at a New Jersey state mental institution, guiding fragile minds through storms of memory, mania, grief, and regret. His voice had often been the only steady bridge between chaos and calm. Patients called him Doc. Nurses called him Dr. Trunk. Staff called him the man with the steady eyes. Even now he could still smell the disinfectant that clung to those long corridors. He could hear the shuffle of paper slippers across waxed floors, the distant hum of fluorescent lights, the soft click of secured doors closing at shift change. 35 years of holding other people's pain had taught him steadiness, but it had also taught him silence. 6 months ago, he had retired. They gave him a plaque, a cake, speeches about dedication, service, legacy, freedom, they called it. but freedom had sounded suspiciously like quiet. He had spent decades listening to other people unravel, holding their secrets until they found footing again. But in the quiet of retirement, he realized how much of himself had been placed on hold in the process. When there was no one else to listen to, the house echoed with his own unspoken questions. Now, standing before his closet, he realized how long it had been since he had dressed for anything that wasn't work, church, or routine. His fingers brushed along a row of collars before pausing on a light blue polo. "All right," he murmured softly. "Let's try this again." The fabric felt crisp beneath his hands. He paired it with navy slacks, a caramel belt, and polished shoes, then a light touch of sandalwood cologne. Subtle, deliberate. For decades that scent had steadied anxious patients sitting across from him. Tonight it would steady him. He studied his reflection, shoulders square, eyes clear. Possibility. He picked up his phone and texted Trey. "Meeting her tonight. Wish me luck." Trey replied almost instantly. "You've got this, Doc. If all else fails, tell her you're the BBQ king." Trunk laughed, shaking his head, always running his mouth. But the laughter steadied him more than he expected. He grabbed his keys, gave the mirror one last look, and said quietly, "Time to stop analyzing and start living." Back in the parking lot, Marlie was just about to pull away when headlights flared in the far corner. She turned. Then she saw it. A sleek dark truck parked off to the side, the engine idling low. Her pulse lifted. The driver's door opened. Trunk stepped out. The first thing Marlie noticed was his height. Tall, commanding without trying. His broad shoulders filled out the light blue polo in a way that felt natural, not performative. Under the amber streetlight, his mahogany skin gleamed warm and smooth. The silver-gray beard she had admired in his photos framed a face that carried both wisdom and ease. "Wow," she breathed. He turned, his eyes finding hers across the parking lot. For one charged heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then his mouth curved into that slow, deliberate grin that had caught her attention the night before. As he walked toward her, steady, grounded, patient, Marlie felt something inside her settle. He was everything she had imagined, and something more. Her car door opened and she stepped out, radiant, poised, very real. The streetlight kissed her skin and caught in her hair like liquid bronze. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he drew a slow breath. "Well, here we go. Looks like the shop closed early," he said warmly. "Story of my life," Marlie laughed. "Guess the universe wanted to see if I could improvise." "I like that," he said. "Improvisation. That's how jazz was born." "You listen to jazz?" "Every day of my life," she smiled. "Coffee shops still open down the street." "Coffee works." As they walked toward his truck, their shoulders brushed once, just enough to spark a quiet awareness. The rhythm between them felt improvised, like the first notes of a song neither had played before. And the night breathed around them, full of possibility. That concludes Episode 3, Chapter 2. We'll continue together on the next open page. If this reading resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment, share what stayed with you, or simply let me know you were here. We'll continue together on the next open page with Chapter 3, The Encounter, on the next episode of An Open Page with LongTemple. On another note, the Platinum Chocolate Universe was created for readers who understand that love is layered, that joy can coexist with history, that healing is both sensual and spiritual. If you are ready for more depth, more heat, more restoration, more truth, step inside. Your next story is waiting. LongTemple, creator of the Platinum Chocolate Universe. Visit platinumchocolateromance.com. Follow LongTemple on my Amazon author page, or simply look for my videos on YouTube. An open page with LongTemple. Hello everyone, and welcome back to An Open Page with LongTemple. Thank you for returning and spending this time with me again. Your support has been steady, loyal, and deeply appreciated. Every time you join me here to listen to these stories unfold, you help bring the Platinum Chocolate universe to life. Tonight we continue our journey through Caramel and Steel, a Platinum Chocolate romance, with the reading of Chapter 3, Rudy's Coffee and Diner. This chapter carries us deeper into the quiet, unfolding connection between Marlie Bennett and Dr. Trunk. What begins as a simple late-night stop for coffee becomes something much more meaningful. Two people discovering that sometimes the most unexpected moments are the ones that open the door to something lasting. So thank you again for staying with me, for being such a faithful and supportive audience, and for allowing these stories to become part of your day or evening. Now let's turn the page together and begin Chapter 3. Chapter 3, Rudy's Coffee and Diner. Trunk lifted his mug and stirred cream slowly into his coffee. "So," he began, his eyes amused, "you're the woman who thought ice cream was the safest first date in the city." "Safer than dinner," she said with a small shrug. "Easier to escape if it went wrong." "And now?" Her smile softened. "Now I think I'm glad it didn't go according to plan." His eyes warmed. He liked the way she spoke, thoughtful, deliberate, like someone who had learned to choose her words carefully after years of giving them away too freely. "You said you worked for the city?" Trunk asked. "Administrative Education Officer," she replied. "Department of Education. I write disciplinary charges, review reports, and keep schools accountable." Her lips curved with quiet humor. "Basically, I organize chaos for a living." He laughed, the sound low and genuine. "I know the feeling. I spent 35 years as a clinical psychologist in a state mental hospital, guiding people through storms of memory, regret, and relapse." He paused. "You learn patience real fast." Her eyes widened slightly. 35 years? That's more than a career. That's a lifetime. "Or a sentence," he joked gently. Then he softened. "I retired 6 months ago. Still learning how to fill the quiet." "Quiet can be healing," she said. "It can also be deafening." Their gazes met. Two people fluent in exhaustion. Two people learning how to begin again. The waitress arrived with their plates. Pancakes for Marlie, apple pie for Trunk. Steam curled upward, carrying the scent of cinnamon, butter, and roasted coffee beans. "You moved to Jersey recently?" Trunk asked. "After the divorce," she said calmly. 33 years of marriage, 3 years of legal tug-of-war. When it was finally over, I packed what was left of me and left Brooklyn behind." She met his eyes without flinching. "I didn't know who I was outside of being someone's wife, someone's mother, but I knew I couldn't keep being invisible." Trunk nodded slowly. "That's brave." His voice softened. "I've been divorced 10 years. Thought I'd already grieved it, but truth is, I just buried it under work. When the job ended, the silence brought it all back." "You loved her?" Marlie asked. "Yes," he said simply. "But sometimes love isn't enough when one of you disappears into addiction." For a moment the jukebox filled the space between them. Otis Redding crooned softly, "Try a little tenderness." Trunk studied her with quiet admiration. There was something about Marlie Bennett that drew him in, not just her beauty, her composure, the intelligence in her eyes. and the dignity in the way she carried her story.
"When's your birthday?" he asked.
4th of July, she said with a grin. Fireworks, parades, the whole country's celebrating me. He laughed. December 14th for me, usually quiet, fireplace, music, ribs on the grill if my buddy Trey comes by. Sagittarius, she teased, that explains the calm confidence. And you're pure fire. She watched him thoughtfully. He dressed the way he lived, intentional, pressed polo, polished shoes. No flash, just quiet pride. What do you do with all that quiet time now? She asked. Read, fix things that weren't broken, visit the hospital once a month to check in on a few former patients. He shrugged. Old habits die slow. You miss it? He considered the question. Parts of it, mostly the people. Even the broken ones taught me something about grace. That's beautiful, she said softly. Her fork offered a syrup-dripped piece of pancake. Iz returned with cinnamon-warm pie. At one point, a crumb clung to the corner of her lip. Without thinking, Trunk reached across the table and brushed it away with his thumb. Got it, he murmured. Her breath caught. Thanks. Their eyes lingered. When the check arrived, Trunk slid his card across the table before she could protest. You're not winning this one. Fine, she relented. But next time it's on me. Next time. Outside, the air had cooled. He helped her into her jacket. Thank you for tonight, she said. It was easy. Easy's a good start, he replied softly, but I'm hoping for lasting. She tilted her chin. The kiss that followed was slow, deliberate, an introduction wrapped in a question. Later that night, her phone buzzed. Made it home. You sleep? Can't sleep. Me either. Then another message appeared. Marlie, tonight was exactly what I didn't know I needed. She smiled into the dark. Then we're both in trouble. And somewhere between one message and the next, Marlie Bennett realized something she had almost forgotten how to feel. She was smiling again, not for who she used to be, but for the woman she was becoming. Thank you for joining me again here on An Open Page with LongTemple. I want to take a moment to say how much I truly appreciate everyone who continues to return for these readings. Seeing familiar names and repeat viewers lets me know that something special is happening here, that we are not simply listening to a story, but that we are engaging with it together. And that means more to me than you know. It tells me that the characters, the emotions, and the quiet moments inside these pages are reaching you. It tells me that we are connecting through the story in the way stories are meant to connect people. And in a beautiful way, it feels like the universe is aligning with us as we continue moving forward together through these pages. That brings us to the close of Episode 4, Chapter 3. We will continue the journey together on the next open page. If this reading resonated with you, I would truly love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment, share what stayed with you, or simply let me know you were here. Your presence matters in this space. On our next episode of An Open Page with LongTemple, we will turn the page together and continue the journey deeper into the story. Until then, I invite you to remember something important about the world these stories live in. The Platinum Chocolate universe was created for readers who understand that love is layered, that joy can coexist with history, that healing can be both sensual and spiritual. If you are ready for more depth, more heat, more restoration, more truth, step inside. Your next story is waiting. LongTemple, creator of the Platinum Chocolate universe. Visit platinumchocolateromance.com. You can also follow me on my Amazon author page, or simply look for my videos here on YouTube. An open page with LongTemple. Until our next open page, thank you for being here with me. Hi everyone. I am so glad to be back to an open page with LongTemple, and I'm happy you came back too. So without hesitation, let's begin. Today we are reading Chapter 4 of Caramel and Steel, a platinum chocolate romance. Chapter 4, First Impressions. Some victories don't sparkle. They just make you laugh loud enough to remember you're still alive. The alarm clock blared at 5:30 a.m., but Marcia was already awake, had been for 15 minutes really. That's what happens when you've lived long enough to stop trusting alarms and start trusting your body. She moved through her bedroom with the precision of a dancer, rehearsing steps she'd known for years. Her petite frame glided as she misted jasmine-scented fragrance across her neck and wrists, the scent wrapping around her like armor for whatever foolishness the day might bring. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds, striping the room in warm gold, catching the faint shimmer of lotion along her cocoa-toned skin as she zipped, smoothed, and straightened her uniform. The quiet house carried the soft smells of toasted bread and coffee drifting from the kitchen. With her phone wedged between her shoulder and ear, she barked toward the hallway. "I don't care if it's not your turn to take out the trash, Darius. Just do it before I get home, or I'm changing the Wi-Fi password." A muffled response floated back. "Yes, Mom." Then came the shuffle of sneakers and the slam of a trash can lid. Satisfied, Marcia grabbed her lunch bag, keys, and thermos. By the time she slid into her car, Mary J. Blige's voice was already pouring through the speakers like liquid courage. Marcia sang along, loud, off-key, completely unapologetic, belting the chorus like she was auditioning for her own freedom. Traffic lights blinked lazily through the early morning. The sky was still deciding what color it wanted to be, but inside the car, Marcia was fully alive. Sometimes, a good song was all the therapy a woman needed before sunrise. The bus depot buzzed with life. The hiss of air brakes, the clatter of metal doors, the smell of diesel fuel mixing with powdered donuts and cheap coffee. It was noisy, chaotic, unapologetically alive. Which meant it was exactly Marcia's kind of place. Before climbing aboard her bus, she pulled out a small spiral notebook from her bag and scribbled a few quick notes. Route change for Tuesday, milk for the house, a line for a story she'd been working on. Writing, even for 60 seconds, helped her breathe before the day swallowed her whole. Then came her ritual checks: tires, mirrors, lights, seats. She moved with the calm focus of someone who understood that other people's children would be riding behind her in a matter of minutes. Precision wasn't just discipline, it was peace. Crystal arrived just then, bursting through the depot doors in a flurry of red braids, lip gloss, and personality big enough to fill the entire parking lot. "Morning, sunshine," she called, tossing her oversized purse onto the front seat. "Girl, you will not believe what my man did this morning." Marcia glanced over, already smiling. "Please tell me it doesn't involve another deep tissue experiment." Crystal gasped dramatically. "Better. Breakfast in bed." She held up her fingers like she was presenting evidence in court. "Grits, turkey bacon, orange juice on a tray. Girl, that man still opens doors and washes dishes." Marcia leaned against the bus door and sighed like a woman in mourning. Must be nice. Crystal grinned. You'll find it. A woman like you doesn't stay single forever. Marcia lifted an eyebrow. You sure about that? Positive, Crystal replied confidently. Men may be foolish, but they're not blind. 3 hours and 12 snack-crunching children later, the bus finally exhaled into silence. Marcia parked at the depot and leaned back in her seat, rolling her shoulders. Her lunch bag waited patiently beside her. Inside sat celery sticks, carrot slices, a granola bar, and a bottle of Fiji water. Crystal glanced over while unwrapping a fried chicken leg that perfumed the entire bus with greasy glory. You and that rabbit food, she teased. Marcia crunched a celery stick like she had something to prove. Some of us are trying to keep it cute. Crystal waved the chicken leg like a magic wand. Girl, you already got it. You just need a man who knows it. Marcia smirked. Speaking of men, I've been talking to someone on Facebook dating. We've got a date next weekend. Crystal froze mid-bite. Her eyes widened. Finally! She leaned closer like a detective working a case. Details. Is he fine? Does he have a job? And most importantly, does he have all his teeth? Marcia laughed. Yes, yes, and yes. Then she hesitated slightly. But I also did something new. Crystal's eyes narrowed. What kind of new? She leaned back dramatically. Because if it's freaky, stop, Marcia burst out laughing. Not like that. You always go straight to the gutter. Crystal shrugged proudly. You said new. My imagination clocked in automatically. Marcia shook her head. Anyway, I was bored. The boys were out, the house was too quiet, so I started scrolling through profiles. Crystal leaned forward. And? There's this option where you can meet friends. Not dates, just friends. And I came across this woman's profile. Crystal blinked slowly. A woman? Yes. On a dating app? Marcia nodded. Crystal clutched her chest like she'd just witnessed a crime. Marcia, don't let this be how your Netflix documentary starts. Marcia laughed so hard she almost dropped her water bottle. Oh, hush. I told her straight up, I'm not gay. I just thought she seemed like someone I'd get along with. Crystal squinted suspiciously. Weird? Maybe. Desperate? Absolutely. Marcia snorted. You are so dramatic. Crystal leaned closer. What's her name? Marlie. The name lingered for a moment. She just moved to Jersey, Marcia continued. She looked classy and kind. Crystal rubbed her chin thoughtfully. If she's too pretty, be suspicious. Women that fine don't need new friends. Marcia rolled her eyes. So basically, everyone is a liar, a scammer, or a ghost. Facts, Crystal said, licking chicken grease from her fingers. Then she pointed at Marcia. Just make sure this Marlie isn't one of those catfish folks with decade-old photos and Bible quotes in every caption. Marcia laughed, but her voice softened. She didn't look like that. She looked real. She paused. And beautiful, honestly. Newly divorced. Probably just figuring life out like I am. Crystal studied her friend carefully. Then she shrugged. All right, I'll allow it. She reached for the ketchup packet. But if she starts asking you to braid hair over FaceTime, I'm staging an intervention. They laughed so loudly, the empty bus echoed with it. Two women holding joy between them like armor. But when the laughter faded, Marcia's mind drifted back to that friend request. Would Marlie respond? Days passed. Every notification made her glance at her phone, then sigh when it wasn't her. By Friday, she redirected her attention to the upcoming date. Still, the curiosity about Marlie lingered quietly in the background, like a song she couldn't quite finish remembering. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in sunlight and nerves. Marcia stood before her mirror, smoothing her curls and painting her lips a bold red. She tilted her chin toward her reflection. "Relax, girl. He's just a man, not Idris Elba." With a laugh, she grabbed her purse and headed out. The restaurant smelled like garlic and baked bread the moment she stepped inside. Warm, comforting, promising. This could go right, she thought. Just one normal date, Lord. That's all I ask. The host glanced at his tablet. "Your date's already here." She spotted him immediately. Her stride slowed. The man sitting at the table looked almost like his photos, if time hadn't fast-forwarded 20 years. The hair was a thinning halo of white. The athletic build had evolved into a proud belly. "Lord, give me strength," she thought. He stood and waved. "Marcia?" "Yes," she said, forcing a polite smile. "You must be Darnell." "Sure am," he said warmly. "You're even prettier than your pictures." "Thank you," she replied, sitting down. "Maybe it won't be so bad." Then, horror. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small plastic case, and with a loud click, popped his dentures out. "Much better," he sighed. "Sorry, I like to eat without 'em." Marcia blinked slowly. Not the teeth, Lord. Anything but the teeth. Determined to remain graceful, she lifted her water glass. "So, Darnell, what do you do?" "Retired," he said proudly. 30 years sanitation. Now I bowl, eat good, and live free." "That's nice," she said politely. "You?" "School bus driver," she said with quiet pride. "Been with the city for years. I write a little, too." He chewed noisily. "Crafting, huh? My first wife used to crochet." Marcia blinked. "First wife?" "She passed. Second left. Didn't want to be around me all day." "Oh," Marcia said carefully. "Sorry to hear that." "No need," he replied cheerfully. "I'm free as a bird." Clearly. By dessert, she'd made up her mind. "Darnell," she said gently, "you seem nice, but I don't think we're a good match." He frowned. "We're having a great time." "You're not my type," she said calmly, "and your pictures weren't honest." He sighed. "Fair enough. Can't blame a guy for trying." "No," she said, rising, "but I can blame him for lying." Driving home, Marcia alternated between disbelief and laughter. "He took his teeth out at the table," she muttered to herself. "I cannot make this stuff up." Still, a smile tugged at her lips. It hadn't gone right, but she'd shown up. She'd tried. In her driveway, she pulled out her phone. Marcia typed quickly. "Girl, remind me never to date a man without a video chat first." Crystal responded instantly. "Spill everything." Marcia laughed until tears filled her eyes. The date had been a disaster. But it was her disaster, her story, her tiny victory. When she finally turned off the car and stepped into the quiet night, something unexpected settled inside her. Joy. Not the loud kind, not the kind that needed applause. Just the quiet kind that lived in the middle of chaos and whispered softly, "Try again." She gathered her purse, her laughter, and the courage she'd almost forgotten she had. Then she stepped toward the house like a woman finally learning that falling flat wasn't failure. Sometimes it was just another way of flying. Again, thank you for spending this time with me on An Open Page with LongTemple. Today we shared Chapter 4 of Caramel and Steel, a platinum chocolate romance. If you enjoyed the story, I invite you to return as we continue the journey with Chapter 5. You can follow this channel to keep turning the pages with me as the stories of the platinum chocolate universe unfold. Click the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this read. Until our next reading, stay blessed and be well. I'm LongTemple, and thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to An Open Page with LongTemple. I'm happy to be here with you again, and I'm grateful you've returned to turn another page with me. Today we are reading Chapter 5 of Caramel and Steel, a platinum chocolate romance. Chapter 5. The Quiet Between Conversations. The morning sun spilled across the concrete platforms of Newark Penn Station, gilding everything in a faint orange glow that made the steel rails look almost warm. Mia moved through the rush like a woman who understood her own gravity. Her caramel-hued skin caught the light with a quiet shimmer, and her stride carried the calm confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime mastering the art of moving through crowded spaces without losing herself. Commuters swarmed around her in practiced urgency, earbuds tucked in place, coffee cups balanced carefully, phones held like lifelines. She clutched her tote close and threaded her way through them with steady grace. After years of chauffeuring her late husband to doctor's appointments, hospitals, and pharmacies, Mia had discovered an unexpected satisfaction in catching her own train. Her pace, her rules, her life. At home in East Orange, she had left behind the usual symphony of morning noise, her daughter calling out reminders from the kitchen, her son-in-law pacing the hallway looking for keys that had been in his hand the entire time, her grandchildren negotiating cereal brands like seasoned diplomats. It was a full house, full of noise, full of love. But sometimes Mia needed the quiet hum of a train car just to hear her own thoughts. The metallic screech of brakes echoed through the tunnel as the train doors began their slow warning chime. Mia quickened her step. With a small burst of speed that surprised even her, she slipped inside just before the doors sealed shut. A tiny victory. She grinned to herself. Inside, the train pulsed with morning energy. Voices murmured in low conversation. The scent of roasted coffee drifted from paper cups. A trace of cologne and freshly pressed cotton hung in the air. Mia inhaled deeply. There was comfort in this rhythm. After all, she had spent most of her life moving to schedules. For decades, she had worked in cybersecurity at the FDIC, tracing digital fingerprints across firewalls and breach reports, piecing together patterns most people never noticed. Retirement had been the official plan. Rest, they called it. But rest had never been Mia's natural state. These days, she still consulted 3 days a week off the books, quietly assisting Mecklen Bank's cyber-terrorism unit when things grew complicated. She told people she was retired. The truth was, she simply worked smarter now. The train lurched forward suddenly, and Mia reached instinctively for the nearest pole. Her hand collided with someone else reaching for the same grip. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said quickly, steadying the woman before either of them lost balance. The stranger turned toward her. The morning light from the window slid across the woman's ash-brown wig, making it gleam softly like silk. High cheekbones, poised shoulders, eyes that carried the calm of someone who had learned how to survive silence. Before either woman could speak, something small clattered to the floor. A white pill bottle rolled once, twice, then stopped against Mia's shoe. She bent down and picked it up carefully. The label caught her attention. "Levothyroxine," she murmured. "Is this yours?" The woman's lips curved with relief. "Yes, thank you," she said.
Her voice carried a low rasp, warm, textured, like velvet dragged slowly across sand. She touched her throat gently. A faint scar curved there like a pale ribbon beneath the morning light. "I had surgery last year," she explained quietly. "They nicked my larynx by accident. My voice, well, this is what's left of it." Mia handed the bottle back with careful kindness. "I'm sorry you went through that," she said softly.
"I take the same medication," Mia continued. "They only took half my thyroid, but it was enough to remind me how fragile the body really is." The train jolted again, sending both women off balance. They reached for the pole at the same time, then laughed quietly at the awkward dance of strangers trying not to fall on each other before 8 in the morning. "Here," Mia said, gesturing toward the open seat across from her. "Before this thing decides to throw us again." The woman smiled with gratitude. "Thank you. I'm Marlie." Mia's eyebrow lifted slightly in pleasant surprise. "Mia," she replied as she sat down. "Nice to meet you, Marlie." The train swayed gently as it gathered speed, sunlight slipping in and out of the windows as the city blurred past. For a moment they rode in companionable silence. Two women who had reached the stage of life where explanations were no longer required. Finally, Marlie spoke. "It's not just the scar," she said thoughtfully. "It's how people look at you after something like this, like you're fragile, breakable." Her fingers rested lightly against her throat. "I'm anything but." Mia nodded slowly. She recognized that tone. The quiet determination of someone who had survived something invisible. "I know that look," Mia said. "When my husband died, people treated me like I might collapse if they asked how I was doing." She smiled faintly. "I didn't need pity. I needed purpose." Marlie's expression softened. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," Mia replied. She glanced out the window briefly before continuing. "It's been a few years now. I live with my daughter and her family. The house is never quiet." Her eyes warmed slightly. "But after losing him, I realized something important. The noise of love is always better than the silence of grief." Marlie exhaled gently. "That's beautifully said." The train rocked steadily beneath them. Outside, brick buildings and bridges slid past like scenery in a film. Inside the car, their conversation unfolded slowly. Two women comparing notes on survival without needing to perform strength. "So what do you do now that you're retired?" Marlie asked. Mia smirked. "Retired is a technicality. I still work 3 days a week consulting with Mecklenbank's cyber-terrorism unit." She shrugged casually. "I tell people I'm off the clock, but they keep calling me back to fix what the rookies miss." Marlie's eyes widened. "That's impressive. I can barely manage a group chat without losing patience." Mia laughed. "Cybersecurity keeps my brain busy. After 30 years with the FDIC, I can't just sit home watching game shows." Marlie nodded knowingly. "I understand completely. I work for the Department of Education, drafting disciplinary charges." Her smile returned slowly. "By day, I tame chaos. By night, I'm learning how to enjoy my own company again." Mia leaned back thoughtfully. "So we're both still in public service, just trying to find peace somewhere between the paperwork." That made them both laugh, not loudly, just enough to recognize something familiar in each other. The train began slowing as it approached Newark Broad Street. Passengers started gathering bags and adjusting coats. Mia and Marlie remained seated a moment longer, reluctant to break the unexpected rhythm between them. Finally, Marlie spoke again. "You know, this is the nicest conversation I've had in a long time." Mia smiled. "Same here."
A quiet pause lingered between them. Then Marlie leaned forward slightly. "Would you like to grab lunch sometime? Nothing fancy. Maybe after work one day?" Mia's smile deepened. "I'd like that." Phones appeared. Numbers were exchanged. In the process, Marlie accidentally snapped a blurry selfie of the two of them that made them burst into laughter. "Friday work for you?" Mia asked. "Friday's perfect," Marlie replied, her raspy voice warmed by the smallest flicker of hope. The train eased to a stop. They stood together near the door, smiling like women who had just stumbled into something unexpected. When Mia stepped onto the platform, the sunlight felt brighter than it had a few minutes earlier. She slipped her phone into her purse, the new number glowing quietly inside it like a small secret. The air smelled of roasted nuts and bus exhaust. People rushed past in every direction. But beneath the noise, Mia felt something rare settle into place. The calm that comes when life whispers yes after years of saying wait. Across town, in another train car moving in the opposite direction, Marlie wore that same quiet smile. Two women on separate tracks, both moving towards something new. Friday suddenly felt very close. Well, that concludes Chapter 5. Thanks again for being here, and I hope to see you for Chapter 6 of this read. Until then, mwah! You've just experienced the opening binge flow of Caramel and Steel, from the prologue through Chapter 5, where every moment begins to unfold and every feeling starts to find its place. But the story doesn't stop here. It continues, one chapter at a time, right here on an open page with LongTemple. Each episode carries you deeper into the conversations, the connections, and the quiet moments that change everything. So don't step away just yet. Let the next chapter play. And if you find yourself wanting more stories, more journeys, more of the world behind the words, visit the Platinum Chocolate Universe at platinumchocolateuniverse.com. or explore even further at platinumchocolateromance.com. You can also experience the stories in a different way through my Book to Look collection, available on my book wall at b2l.bz/xcmz7x. And when the time is right, the next binge flow will be waiting for you, ready to carry you even further into the journey. Until then, stay with the story.